What's up everyone, James Lynch here. Happy holidays. Today's video, I'm going to look at my personal top 10 favorite UFC fights of 2025. And unfortunately, I can't show you guys any footage, but what I can show you are the stats. So we're going to count down our top 10. This is just my opinion. Don't get bent out of shape if your favorite fight isn't in the list order that I have it in the top 10, but this is just my personal favorite from, what I watched this year. So we're going to start with number 10. You got it right here. Ian Machado, Garry, Carlos Prates. A little bit of context ahead of this one. It was a short notice fight for both guys. And yes, Garry ended up winning, outlanded Carlos Prates by a good margin here, 126-63. But Prates getting Garry in a bit of trouble in this fight, right, with the power. But Gary's able to survive and get it done. Big fight for the division, and two guys that have certainly emerged as contenders in the weight class here. So really like this fight, like the fact how it all came together and everything. Ian Machado, Garry, Carlos Prates coming in at number 10. Okay, number 9 is Jose Aldo and Zahabi. And I know a lot of people don't like this fight because of the way the scorecards went. I actually talked about this fight in a different video as far as the bad decisions. But you look at it there, Zahabi did outland Aldo. But the big thing with this fight was Zahabi's ability to survive in this fight. It looked like he was done in that late round, and he's able to survive, ends up getting the win. If you're a Canadian fan, it was a cool fight because, Zahabi ended up pulling it off and a lot of people didn't think he would. If you're a Jose Aldo fan, you're probably not too happy about this fight, but regardless, just the fact that you see a fight where you think it's going to go one way and you see a guy survive like this in Zahabi, that's got to get mentioned this year. I thought this was a very good fight. And again, the strikes are, we're getting up to almost 100 strikes, significant strikes for Zahabi. That's what you like to see in a fight, right? Didn't have any successful takedowns, but you look at some of the strikes there. Very interesting as far as how everything sort of went in this fight. So yeah, big fight that happened at UFC 315 back in May in Montreal, and Zahabi ends up getting the nod there. Okay, let's go to number 8. This was a bit of a shocker where Jack Della Maddalena took out Belal Muhammad to win the welterweight title. That was back at UFC 315. And just again, the context of this, right? Della Maddalena was supposed to fight Leon Edwards. They pull him from the fight. Della Maddalena has that, injury that kept him out for a while. And the way Belal Muhammad beat Leon Edwards, I think a lot of people felt like Belal was just going to go in there and do the same thing to Jack Della Maddalena. But Della Maddalena showing why up until this fight had not lost a fight in the UFC, and he goes in there and puts on an all-time great fight. And this is the big thing for me here, for a guy that gets accused of being boring in Belal Muhammad. Look at the strike count here, 132 strikes compared to 178. These guys certainly brought it. Belal getting 3 takedowns in that fight, but it's not enough as JDM ends up getting the win. Especially if you look at that 5th round, outlanding him 53-27. So very good fight this year. One of the most memorable welterweight fights we had on the docket this year. Very good win there for Jack Della Maddalena. And of course, he follows it up by losing to Islam Makhachev. But one of the all-time performances this year is Jack Della Maddalena taking out Belal Muhammad by decision at UFC 315. Okay, counting down to number 7 is a fight we saw recently. How about Petr Yan taking out Merab Dvalishvili? And again, huge strike count here, 139-134. I actually didn't realize the strike count was so close in this one. It's actually Merab landing the more strikes at 196-59, but it's the significant strikes where Yan gets the edge here. Also the 5 takedowns too. And this was just one of those fights that, let's be honest, I know there were some people out there who picked Petr Yan, but a lot of people did not expect him to beat Merab in a fashion where I don't think anyone was debating the decision in this fight, right? Yan comes out and gets it done. And, again, leading into this fight, if we talk about context, right? Like Merab, was trying to go for, history here, trying to get 4 title defenses in 1 year. Yan had come off a couple wins over, some decent opposition in Davidson Figueiredo and Marcus McGee, but he saved his best performance for last, going out there, really good game plan there, hitting to the body. If you look at the, I think they have the body strikes here, 17 body shots here for Petr Yan. That ends up being the difference, not to mention the 13 leg kicks that he gets in this one. So Petr Yan putting on one of the all-time great bantamweight title fights that we've seen. He gets the win here. Really good fight that capped off actually, I think this was the card of the year, honestly, 323. I don't know if I'll end up doing a video on that of cards of the year, but 323 was right up there. And a big reason for that was Petr Yan's win over Merab Dvalishvili. Big underdog in that fight, if you remember. He comes out and gets it done. So again, that adds a little bit more to why this was one of the most memorable fights this year. One of the best fights this year. Petr Yan taking out Merab Dvalishvili. Okay, coming in at number 6 is Alex Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. And this fight, again, the context of it is pretty interesting, right? Diego Lopez, incredible career since he comes into the UFC on short notice. That fight against Movsar Evloev, which he loses, but he has a pretty good showing in that one. Ends up winning the rest of his fights. And Volkanovski coming off that knockout loss to Ilia Topuria. So a lot of people felt like Lopez was going to go in there and knock out Volkanovski in the fight. And what does Volkanovski do? He shows why he is one of the best, if not the best, featherweight of all time. Goes in there, puts on a, like his nickname says, great performance in this one, and absolutely outlands Diego Lopez, 158-63. He gets one takedown as well. Total strikes 165-71. This is just a great performance from Volk, showing that age is not a number. And by the way, I think Diego Lopez put on a pretty good fight in this one too. He actually hurt Volkanovski in this one. I know the stats definitely favor Volkanovski winning the fight, but this was just a good fight for both guys because, again, for Lopez, it forced him to level up a little bit. With Volkanovski, shows that he still has it. Now, I've mentioned this in several videos. I'm not a fan of these two fighting again. It would have been nice to see Volk fight someone else in between, whether that is Movsar Evloev or Lerone Murphy, but this was a great fight. Another good card this year, 314. That was another really standout event for the UFC. So this just capped off a very good event there. Again, great fight from both guys, Volkanovski and Lopez. Okay, coming in at number 5. This was a great fight too. Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill. And what made this fight great, aside from the fact that on paper, you're like, there's no way this fight's going to suck with these two guys. But it was the back and forth a little bit. If you go look at it here, and again, there's a bit of revisionist history because fans don't like Jamal Hill, but if you look at it there, Jamal Hill outlanding Yuri Prochazka 38-22 in that second round. And I remember watching that fight going, okay, Yuri's got the first, Jamal's got the second, and you look at the strikes there, it does end up being Yuri landing more strikes, 97-81. But then, of course, Yuri finishes Jamal Hill in that third round and caps it off. And again, I mean, Yuri Prochazka is must-see TV. Great fight there. Good fight for both guys. I know a lot of people, like I said, have an opinion of Jamal Hill, but this was one of the better fights this year, taking place at UFC 311. Good fight for both guys. Of course, Yuri ends up undefeated on the year. Jamal Hill winless in 2025, but very good fight from both guys. Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill bringing it in this one. Good fight here in the light heavyweight division. So now that we're in our top 5, let's get to number 4. And, this is debatable as far as fight of the year because it was such a one-sided fight, but you got to give your flowers to Diego Lopez. So Diego Lopez has the fight with Volk. He loses. He gets outclassed in that one, and he comes out with a very dominant win. And I believe he was the underdog in this fight against Jean Silva too. Silva having a ton of hype. Those finishes over, Melsick and Bryce Mitchell. And he comes in here and Diego Lopez is like, nope, I'm the contender. I'm going to go in there and take care of business. The strike total 74-43 as far as significant strikes, 10 of 16 leg kicks as well. Also gets 3 or 4 takedowns. This was just a great performance there. Lopez outlanding. And the second round was close, but of course he finishes it off with a great knockout there, getting the TKO in the second round. Diego Lopez, Jean Silva, great fight. You cannot talk about 2025 without talking about this fight. This was an amazing fight on paper, and it absolutely delivered on the Noche card. So shout out to Diego Lopez, Jean Silva. Big fight there in the featherweight division that took place earlier this year. Okay, number 3. Now this is where, again, people might disagree with me here. I have Merab and Umar. So again, context matters here. I thought, and a lot of people thought, Umar was going to beat Merab, right? Umar was undefeated, comes from that great lineage with the Nurmagomedov family and that great camp over there with Islam and everyone else. And obviously Umar broke his hand, but it's the fact that Merab was able to persevere and get the win here. He was the underdog as champion, and he does outland Umar 111-104. He gets, 7 of 30 takedown attempts. Umar getting 2 on his end. But this, again, kind of a bit like the, Volkanovski and Lopez fight, not as one-sided, obviously, but kind of a good learning experience here for Umar as the younger fighter. But you look at Merab, all these rounds, they definitely brought it. And again, when you're getting a strike count here of 111 and 104 on each end, it's a good fight. This was like the biggest chess match to me this year was this fight. And I think it was just a very high level fight. Again, people might, if you're talking like barroom excitement, I should say, as I'm not even speaking properly here. People would, not reference this fight, but I like looking at high level fights. And that's what this reminded me of. 2 guys that are at the top of their game. This to me makes the top 3 because of the high levelness in this one. And I just think they both delivered. So great fight here. And I hope we get to see this fight in the future. Definitely need to see that rematch at some point. That, again, taking place at the UFC 311 card at the beginning of the year. Okay, number 2. Got to mention this one. I mentioned him earlier, Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Rountree. This looked like a runaway win here for Khalil Rountree. With the fact that you can even look at the stats here. He was up in both rounds, especially that second round. Looked like he was going to, go and win maybe the biggest win of his career. And Yuri Prochazka turns the tide. He's able to get the knockout win over Khalil Rountree. One of the best comeback fights in UFC history, easily in our top 5. But more importantly, just a big win here for Yuri, going undefeated on the year. It was an entertaining fight. Again, you're never in a boring fight for Yuri Prochazka, but some people might have had this as their number 1. I think my number 1 pick was a more entertaining fight throughout the whole fight than this one. But as far as significance go, this is right up there too with the fact that, again, Yuri looked like he was going to lose this fight, and he finds another gear, gets the knockout win over Khalil Rountree. That was at UFC 320. Very good fight on that one. And coming in at number 1, I have a feeling this is where most people are going to have theirs. This to me was fight of the year, no questions asked. And the context part of it too is important as well. And I'll mention that at the end, but look at these strikes, 215 to 204. I mean, just amazing output by both flyweights. Big fight. And again, a passing of the guard fight. Royval, been at the top before. Joshua Van working his way up. Again, his third fight that year, ends up fighting 4 fights when he fights Pantoja at the end of the year. Joshua Van, one of the youngest fighters on the roster, and he goes out there and he gets it done, nearly finishing Royval in this fight. Doesn't end up getting the TKO finish, but put on one of the best fights we've ever seen in UFC history. I don't think there's any debate here. I mean, if you wanted to go context, I think even context, this fight takes the cake because of the fact that it got Joshua Van the title shot. He ends up fighting Pantoja. He ends up winning the title. I know not the cleanest win with the injury and everything, but still, this to me was the fight of the year. Great fight. You know, this is the type of fight, if you're trying to get someone into watching MMA, these two definitely delivered. They went out on their shield. And listen, credit to Brandon Royval. I know his year didn't go well with him ending off 2 losses, but this is a guy that always brings it. A lot of respect to him for fighting these younger up-and-comers as well. So yeah, this to me was fight of the year. For, you know, I don't think there's any debate. It's, you know, again, everyone can kind of pick how they want, but I thought this was the fight of the year, and I got to see this one live too, so it was great in Vegas seeing these two do it. So again, my fight of the year, Brandon Royval and Joshua Van. So let me know in the comments your top 10, or at least some of the fights that you thought were worthy of it. I just want to get your list. If we want to dispute our order, we can, but that's not really the point of this video. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.